Hello everyone, welcome to the sample room. Today we're going to be sewing our workwear short. It's the short of the summer. It's super beginner friendly. It's got a looser fit. It's a little bit longer, so it's super comfortable, but at the same time, it's also super cute. There's 4 pockets, yes, because we love pockets. And the pocket at the side seam, the construction is something that I've worked through, and it's something used in the industry, and it's super durable, super strong. It's gonna last forever. So let's get into it. Okay, so I just cut out all of my materials. I'm using our 100% organic cotton. It's about 300 grams, which I think is like 10 ounces. It's thicker, but we've washed it with a softener, so it is super soft. It's going to like elasticate really well. And I would say this is probably like the heaviest material that you should use for this project. I think lighter materials are going to lend itself better to the elasticated waistband, but I think anything that is really malleable that is a little thicker will also do very well. So yeah, so before you begin, you need to serge all of your pieces. The seam allowance I'm using here is only 1 cm, and that's because this is a circular pattern as well. So you can cut this pattern using other garments, and you only have a small amount of space to use for those garments. So we're working with what we got. So I'm gonna go ahead and serge all of my pieces before I begin, and most of the time I just serge as I go, just because sitting at the serger for an extended amount of time it doesn't work well for me. So yeah, do one or the other, and see you in a bit. Also, before you start sewing, make sure to clip all of your notches, and make sure to clip the dart and somehow mark the dart on the wrong side of the fabric. I always forget to do this before I start, and here's a friendly reminder. Okay, now that I've serged all my pieces, I am going to sew the back dart. So how I like to do this is I'll get some pins, I'll get a ruler, get a ruler, and I will want to make sure to mark my dart point on the back. So I'll just put a pin through it and make sure that it's marked from the back side. Also make sure that your notches are snipped. It looks like one of mine didn't transfer. Oh yeah, here we go. Make sure your notches are snipped. So fold your dart and align your notches. Then find your dart point, which is right here, and then fold it together. Make sure everything aligns, and then pin as so. Now we're gonna draw a line because it's on the back side of our fabric. I also buy these trusty pins that they get removed with heat. You can find them on Amazon. I can link them below. They're super great, and you can mark all over the right side of the fabric, and then when you iron it, it immediately goes away. It's used at most factories these days. Okay, so starting at your notch, just draw a line straight to your dart point. Ta-da. So now you're gonna sew. So back tack, starting at the waist here, go all the way down, and then once you hit the dart point, don't back tack. Just run all the way off and make sure and give yourself a few inches, because you're going to double knot right at the dart point. That's not good. I forgot to add, go ahead and do both sides of the back leg. It just makes things so much easier when you're doing both steps at once. try this again. Starting at the top of the short, back tack, and then just follow the line all the way down. And when you get to the edge of your fabric, try and bite that edge right at the dark point. And then no back tacking, pull it, and then snip. So now you basically just take these two ends and make a double knot. Super easy. And that's how to sew a dart. Yay! Make sure and untwist them a little bit, because then it just gets rid of the bulk. And then one knot, two knots, and then just snip as close as you can to the knot. Ta-da! And then once you're done, iron it to fold it to the center back. Fold your dart pointing to the center back. Now that I've sewn my darts, I'm going to be pressing them to the center front and center back. Sorry. Now that I'm done with my darts, I'm going to be pressing them towards center back. As so. First, we are going to be taking our pocket and we're going to be folding seam allowance at the top of the pocket 1 cm. Then we're going to flip it right side over and then fold it down 4 cm. And then I usually like to stick a couple pins in there just to hold it in place until I can sew it. And then next, we're going to fold up the bottom of the pocket 1 cm as well. And we are going to stitch using our seam allowance, the top of the pocket here, and then the bottom of the pocket as well. Now that I am done sewing, I am going to just snip to the top corner of the pocket, and then same with the bottom here. Just snip that little piece off. Okay, now we're going to flip this inside out so the back of the pocket's super clean. And then with my corners here, I kind of like to give it a little, just like pinch this way, rub it together a little bit, and it should it should poke out a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't, and I will very carefully take the edge of my scissors and push it out just to get that sharp corner. Sometimes you can over push it and ruin your pocket. Don't do that. I even think I overdid it a little bit here. So then once you do that, press the top of your pocket and then come down to the bottom and do the same. It's not as big of a turn here, but it will still give you the idea and give you a little clean finished corner here as well. Again, use pins if you need, if your iron isn't as hot and you need some help just keeping it in place. And again, if I were you, I would do both pockets at the same time. So you can basically measure them and make sure that they are the same size. Right now, maybe this looks a little bit bigger, and then I'll make sure that looks good. So do them both at the same time to make sure they're the same size. Next, we're gonna run one row of stitching across the top of our pocket to have a clean finish. Since we made this turn back 4 cm, just make sure you are catching the back of this if you sew it from the front, or just sew it from the back and run a stitch right along this edge here. Looks good. Now I'm gonna do the other pocket as well, just while. Pretty good. Yay. Now that we have our pocket sewn at the top, we're going to align it with the points on our Now that we have our pocket sewn like so, we're going to align it to the back of our short. Just align the top corners of the pocket to the points that you made and pin. If parts of your pocket, if corners of your pocket look like this, like you can see the fold, definitely make sure when you're pinning to use your pin and just fold it under. I don't know if you can see that. Fold that tucked piece, your seam allowance, underneath just before you get to the machine. It will make things so much easier, so much cleaner, and just pin it down like that. So you can't even see the folded edge. I'm gonna do the same over here. Just tuck it under, but don't tuck it under too much. I think pinning and ironing are the two most underutilized, undervalued things in sewing. Okay. Cool. So now, starting at the top right of the fabric, oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Starting at the top right corner of the fabric, sew an edge stitch all along the edge. I just talked about pinning and I pinned that really badly. Sew along the edge of the pocket here till you get to this top corner, and then offset your next stitch by 5 millimeters, and then I think that's 3/16 of an inch, and then run another stitch all the way around till you get back to the top here, and then finish at this top corner right where you started. So I'm starting at the corner here, and I usually like to just put my needle down right, it's actually not where I wanna, right where I'm going to sew. Then I'll take my pin out, and then I'll start my edge stitch. If you mess up a little bit, that's okay. Everyone does. Just get right back on track. And also, as I'm going, I usually like to make sure everything is flat, just to be safe. And whoop. So then when you get here, pivot. We usually do three stitches, and then, I mean, this is different for everyone. I like to align the stitching I just did to somewhere on the needle so I know exactly what to follow. Okay, not too shabby. She looks pretty good. Okay, now that we have both of our pockets on our backside, let's get our front pieces and let's start in the pocket. First, we're gonna take our pocket pieces and we're going to serge them because I haven't yet. And then you will also see if you are using a heavier fabric like I am, I cut obviously one side out of the fabric I'm using, which is self. And then for the knuckle side of my pocket bag, I'm using a lighter material. It will create less bulk up in the waistband and just in the front of the short to just make it feel a little bit better. So I'm going to serge these and then come back. Okay, so starting with the front of the short and your knuckle side pocket bag, align the edges of the pocket bag with your notches. And it should just align with the top of the short here. And pin that. I need to get more pins. And we're going to sew at our seam allowance, 1 cm. And then just back check here as well. Okay, so I've just sewn the pocket bag here. I am going to press it open. And then I'm going to, next, I'm going to snip to where our seam allowance, or where our stitch is on our pocket. Snip both the front and the pocket bag. And so now we're going to flip the pocket bag to the inside and making sure that these pieces can fully come out. If you are getting any bunching here, that means you didn't clip close enough to that sewn edge, which I did not here. Before we flip it over, we're going to press our seam allowance. We pressed it open, but now we're gonna press it to the pocket bag and we're gonna understitch. So catching all of the seam allowance in the back, we're going to run a stitch from our notch, an edge stitch, just catching the edge of this pocket bag here from notch to notch. Okay, now that I've done my edge stitch, now we can flip it to the inside of the short, making sure our other seam allowance is still on the outside. And you want to make sure that the front of the short isn't rolling too much to the inside. So I like to just like roll it back a little bit with my fingers and then give it a good press. Beautiful. So now we're going to run another stitch 5 millimeters or 3/16 of an inch away from the edge here and sew from the folded edge to the folded edge. So now we're going to start on the opposite side of the pocket bag, which is the side panel. So get your side panel that it has the notches on the side that you're sewing, and then let's get our matching pocket bag. So right sides together, and like we did with the front, align your notches. The bottom here too. See it. And then we're gonna sew our seam allowance again. Okay, so I just sewed my pocket here, And then I went ahead and pressed it open and then pressed my seam allowance to the pocket bag side, because now, well, first we're going to clip in like we did with the front of the short. So clip in here and here, just at your notches, all the way to the stitch we just did. And then flip that. And then we're gonna run a top stitch 5 millimeters or 3/16 away from the edge. So similar to the top stitch on the pocket here. Notch to notch. Okay, so now that we just sewed that together, we're going to put our pocket bags together and sew. And make sure to not get these two top parts in the way. But just sew your pocket bags. And you don't even need to technically sew the top part of the pocket bag yet, because that'll be finished into the waistband seam. But sew the top and then just sew all the way around here, and then till you get to the bottom and back tack at the bottom. This part of the pocket can get a little tricky, especially because there's a lot of material coming together at the point here of the pocket. So, and you really want to align the notches here as much as possible. So
now
I've actually put a pin
our side seam shut.
Where my
First,
notches
let's
align
pin our pocket underneath
here.
out of the
so
way.
I'm going to sew,
and something
I'm gonna start
here, and then
at the hard part basically.
Next, I'm going to sew the top and then the bottom of the side seam.
So we just finished sewing our side seam here, and now we are going to do our bar tacks here and here at the top and bottom of our stitching. And make sure if your pocket is kind of like gaping, or make sure to align the side seam as it should be. And that's why I have pins a little bit here, because mine got a little wonky. So pin it as it should lay, because the bar tack will really secure everything in place. So now we're going to do a bar tack on the top and the bottom of our pocket here. The bar tack will hold everything really securely. I've had pockets before that I use a lot that this will actually start to rip off if it doesn't have a bar tack. Every machine will be different when it comes to bar tacks, and that's something that you should practice before you start on your short. So firstly, we have to find, if you're using a home machine, which in order to do a bar tack, you will need a home machine. If you just have like an industrial machine, you can just run a few stitches over the top and the bottom of our notch, just perpendicular to the side of our short, and I'll show you in a second. And that will give you the same strength as a bar tack. But let's learn how to do a bar tack here. So I'm gonna find my zigzag stitch, which is number 4. And then we're going to make the stitch length smaller. Here we go. Okay, 0.4. And then I'm going to make the stitch width also smaller. So I think this is the setting I did last time. So let's check it out. Let's do this. And then I'm reversing. There we go. Oh my god, she's so cute. Okay. She looks perfect. So this is the bar tech I just did right here. So cute, so secure, and it looks perfect. So that's the setting I'm going to use for my short. So back to the short. I'm going to input it this way since it will sew the bar tech vertically right at the notch of the short. And then go until you hit the top stitching that we just did. So we've added our bar tacks, looking so cute. Now we are going to press our seam allowance to the front side of our short, and then we're going to top stitch 5 mm or 3/16 away from the edge. So it'll basically just start and stop here and align it with this top stitching, and then same with this top stitching here, align it all the way down to the end of your short. Okay, here we have our pocket. Oh, I pinned it, so not yet. Okay, now we have our pocket. She's so cute. She's super deep as well. I wanted to make sure that, you know, it could fit a phone in here and whatnot. So good. That was the hardest part of sewing in the short. The rest of it, pretty much cake. So I'm gonna reward myself with a nice dog walk. Okay, that was such a nice walk. Okay, so now we're going to sew, before the gusset, we're gonna sew the back side seam together. Should be super easy. And then we're going to press it open and press it to the back and then top stitch the same width here. So 5 mm or 3/16 of an inch away from the seam on the back side of the fabric. Time to sew our gusset. So I marked here on mine, the front and the back, just because it looks pretty similar. So I would also do the same. This is back, this is front. Okay. So we're gonna put right sides together here, and we're going to sew our gusset to the front. Okay, now we're going to press this open and we're going to top stitch at 5 mm or 3/16 of an inch. Okay, now that we've done that part of the gusset, let's close her up. So we're going to sew the back part of the gusset, and then again, same old song and dance. Sew this, press it open, but press the seam allowance open and then to the back of the short, and then top stitch again, like we always have. Okay, so we've just finished sewing up our gusset. We have 2 legs. Oh my God, it's happening. Okay, so with one of your shorts inside out, wrong side out, put the other short in right side out, and then align your fronts. So I have the front here. I'm going to put the front right side of the short in the wrong side. And I'm going to sew the front rise seam. So sew the J-fly all the way around to the center back. Make sure and align your gusset seams as well. Okay, we just sewed our rise seam. So I'm going to press all of this open. I'm also going to cut this J-fly point because it's going to need to be a little bit more malleable. So I'm gonna press that and then come back. Okay, we have our fly piece, and this has seam allowance on it, so you can just align it right to the top of your fly. And then just draw. And only if you don't have one of these heat pens, use chalk I would definitely highly recommend tracing on here. You're gonna get the best look of a top stitch. Cute. Okay, I'm gonna top stitch. I would start sewing on the tip of the J-fly and then make your way around and then finish at the waist. Oh my God, obsessed. So last but not least, on the rise, we are going to top stitch again, pulling our seam allowance underneath to the wearer's left, the side with the fly. And we're gonna top stitch 5 millimeters or 3/16 of an inch away from the seam, and it's gonna look so crisp. So first put a few pins in, because it's gonna be really hard to iron that to the side, and then just to make sure that everything is all on the left side. Now, since we're not using an actual button to use our buttonhole foot, you know, we have nothing to put in here. And usually this is how the machine lets it know where to stop and start the buttonhole. So we will measure our draw cord. So go ahead and get your draw cord. Mine is right here. Mine measures about 1.2 cm. So it's like half an inch. So I am going to make sure that my buttonhole just measures a few millimeters bigger than that. You're going to want to add between 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch to the draw cord width measurement. And that's going to be your buttonhole width measurement. And then from there, you're going to take your buttonhole, I can get it out, your buttonhole foot, and you're going to put that measurement right where your button should be. And you should definitely test this out on a scrap piece of fabric before you sew your buttonhole on your actual short, just to make sure it can fit the draw cord, it can go in and out really nicely, and there's just like a little bit of tolerance there for the draw cord. So test it out, make sure it looks good, and then go ahead and do the buttonhole on your short. Yay. Okay, buttonholes look good. One of mine kind of looks lower than the other. Oh well. I kind of had it angled. Whoopsie. That is okay. We are now going to fold our buttonhole in half, and we are going to clip it. And then we got some buttonholes. Let's go. Now that we've got our buttonhole all nice and pretty looking, let's sew our waistband together. So, sorry, I'm cleaning up my buttonholes. We are going to put right sides together, and let's get our other waistband. This waistband is a little confusing because I created it specifically so you can, you know, make this waistband from anything. You can, you know, make this whole short from anything. So this waistband is cut in 2 pieces. This first piece is going to go on the front like so, and then the back piece will connect to obviously the front side seam here. So we're going to sew those 2 together now. And obviously I haven't serged these pieces as well, so I'm going to do that as well. Okay, I have attached my waistband, and I've also serged, but also I've pressed open my seam allowance here and leave it open. Don't top stitch it. And we are next going to attach the waistband. So we're going to fold our waistband all the way around. And you just need a few pins here just to put it in place. Now we are going to sew our waistband, but it's gonna get a little tricky because we have to also put in our elastic and our drawcord. So first we're gonna start with the front. We're going to follow our front notch here, which is the center front of the waistband, and we're going to align it to the center front of our short. So, and then make sure your buttonholes are touching the right side of the short. So go ahead and pin that. And make sure the front of the waistband is also pinned as well as the wrong side of the waistband or the back side. Okay, next we're going to align our waistband seams to the front seam here. And then we're also going to make sure we catch our pocket bag in this seam as well. It's gonna get a little thick here. So tell your sewing machine to get ready. And then also take out the pins that are underneath just as you go. So I'm gonna pin one more, catching that pocket bag. Beautiful. I'm gonna do one at the back here as well. I'm gonna do the same to the other side. So you should also have notches on your back waistband to align where your back side seam is. So go ahead and pin that as well. Okay, and then your waistband should fit perfectly to the short. It's the same length as the waistband. So now let's go ahead and pin where your dart is and make sure you pin your dart facing the center back. I think it's good to use more pins than necessary here. There's a lot you have to catch and you really don't want to have to go back and redo this seam. So now we are going to leave the center back open. And how I like to make sure I remember, because my memory is terrible. Well, basically an inch on either side, 2.5 cm on either side of the center back rise seam, we're going to stop. So I like to put two pins in. I will never forget that. So I'm going to do this just on the other side here. So we're going to start on either side, go all the way around and finish on the other side. Okay, we did it. And then we kept our hole at the back. I'm going to go ahead and give this a good press. I'm going to press it open and then I'm going to press everything down. Okay, now we are going to find our elastic. Let's measure some elastic. So take your elastic, it should be 4 cm wide, and the short should be sitting right at your belly button. So go ahead and measure, or you can put on the short and see kind of like where it hits you, because all of our bodies are different. So do that, see where it hits you, and then where the middle of the waistband is, figure out what point that is on your body. And sorry if my head's cut off. And then go ahead and take just a bunch of elastic and put it around your body. Obviously do it without pants. And so measure that, and you can also do this with a measuring tape. I just find that it's easier to do it with the elastic. So measure around where your belly button is. I'm just gonna do this along with y'all. Put the end of the elastic right in the center of your body, or I'm going to align it right on my belly button, and then overlap that about 1 to 2 cm, if that makes sense. See what I'm doing? Overlapping, center, overlap, and just make sure you know how much you're overlapping it. And tightness wise, I don't really like a tight waistband. I just like things loosey-goosey on my body. So I'm doing it kind of just like barely hugging my body. And what's great is we have the draw cord. If we want to put it tighter, we can. So I would say err on the looser side. So just having it rest right against your body is going to be the most comfortable, I think, for this short. Okay, so now overlap the top 1 to 2 cm. Just make sure you know. I'm going to do like 1.5. And then put a pin. Right where it's at. But then don't get the back of it in. So pin it right where you have cut it. And then we're just gonna cut right here. Okay, we have our elastic and let's cut it. Amazing. Now we're gonna put our elastic into the short. And we do this by, if you have a safety pin, this is your time to use it. Put the safety pin through about 1 inch deep from the end of your elastic. Give it a nice little tug, make sure it's secure. Close it, and we're going to run the elastic through the back of our short. And so we take our open end of our waistband and we run it through. And what's great about the safety pin is that I can feel it so much more, and I can basically push it through with the back end of the safety pin and then pull it through with the front end of the safety pin. So I'm just gonna inch my way all the way around. Once you start getting to the opposite side, I would start watching to make sure you don't lose the loose end of the elastic. That would be terrible. And also make sure it's all parallel to the front of the short. It's not twisted at all. So as you're going, make sure it all is looking really nice and neat. I mean, neat as you can be for an elastic short. Yay, we've made it. Try and be gentle as you pull the elastic on its last the last part of its journey. She's been through a lot. And hold both ends of the elastic and kind of like distribute it a little evenly. I mean, yeah. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then, see, mine already got twisted. Make sure they are not twisted. So, okay, mine looks and feels good. So, and again, triple check your work here because it is really hard to undo what we're about to do. So, undo your safety pin. And remember that overlap measurement that we just did? So mine's like 1.5 cm. Pin the overlap. Okay, pinned the overlap. Just triple checking. Okay. Now we are going to, feel free to pull this a little bit. We're going to run a bunch of stitches up and down vertically, starting at the top, going on to the bottom. Do this up and down like 12 times with just single needle, single stitch, just to make sure that this is secure as possible. Sometimes I even like to run that stitch over the edges of the elastic, but it's not necessary. That will really just secure your elastic together. So let's do it. Look at that. Super secure. Obsessed. I might have gone a little overboard, whatever. Okay, next, I would try them on. See if, you know, the elastic feels good. See if everything is like laying really nicely. And then once you're feeling good, let's do the draw cord. So similar to the elastic, we are also going to take our safety pin, put it through our draw cord, and I would measure the draw cord similar as you did with the elastic. Put it around your waist, near your belly button, and then see how much extra you want to be able to tie. And I cut a little bit longer than what I need, just in case. Okay, so, and then for this, we want the draw cord on the outside of the elastic because the draw cord is going to come through the buttonholes. And we only technically need to do this on one side, two sides, so two halves, because it will just come out the buttonhole. So and have it come out the buttonhole. Yay. And then do the same for the other side. Make sure you're keeping it as flat as possible. So. Okay, so once both of your draw cords are through, make sure they are pulled all the way through and they are even. Now let's close up our back. Finally. So we're going to do, the same thing that we did when we stitched the rest of it closed, except we just need to be a little bit more careful this time of the elastic that is in there. So, and then try and make this as flat as possible as you are sewing. Okay, let's sew that shut. And right here, I'm using pins that are parallel to the seam allowance here, just to keep that elastic as forward as possible, so I'm not sewing on top of it. Last but not least, we are going to run a top stitch along the waistband to make this look super clean. So we're going to fold our waistband seam allowance down and we are going to pin. It's going to be a little bulky, but it's going to make everything lay flat and it's going to, yeah, just clean everything up on the inside. And as you're going, there's obviously ease for the elastic. So just stretch it a little bit if it gets a little bunchy while you're sewing. As I am sewing the top stitch, I am pulling it just a tad to make sure this is flat while I sew to get a really nice clean looking top stitch. Okay, last but not least on the waistband, we are going to make sure our draw cords are aligned the same and right at center back. I hate when draw cords come out in the wash. It is the most infuriating thing to me because it's so easily fixable. We are going to do a small bar tack right to hold in our draw cord, and I can feel it right here. And maybe I'd want to center it in the middle of our waistband. That's usually standard. So I don't know if you can see this a little bit more. There she is, right here. So I'm gonna do a bar tack, and this is totally up to you because obviously it's on the outside of your garment. I'm going to run a bar tack, aligning it to the center back rise seam, and I'm gonna go up and down just to keep it in place. Okay, I'm also going to make my bar tack a little bit bigger than the bar tack we did on the pocket, just so it looks nicer. I think it will match the proportion of the waistband width. So my machine is at, I don't know if you can see, it's at a stitch length of 0.5 and a stitch width of 2. So let's do it. Looks so cute. I'm thrilled with that. And I'm thrilled with the idea of not having a lost draw cord in the wash. Okay, y'all, we in the home stretch. So next we are going to do our hem, and I love a clean finish hem. You could just turn this up 2.5 cm, stitch, call it good. But I love a clean inside as much as possible. So I am going to use just my serge line as a guide, and I'm going to press that. And then I'm just going to show you all at once. And then I'm going to flip that up. This is around 6 millimeters. I'm going to get really technical right now. And then, so I'm going to do that all the way around. And then next I'm going to measure this like 1.9. So, because our turn back measurement for our hem right now is 2.5 cm. So there we go. And then I will do that all the way around. Thanks for following along of our tutorial of how to sew our workwear short. I hope you love your short as much as we do, and we'll see you next time.